Welcome to the second video of our public meeting agenda formatting best practices guide. And here we'll cover a number of the recent items we discussed in the actual text version of the guide, specifically around numbering best practices and how we can actually get this to show in Microsoft Word when we're actually creating our agenda document. A key thing to note, again, just as in the last video, I'm using Microsoft Word 2013. The other versions of Word, you can have some manipulation, and there are features that allow you to achieve what you're going to see here today. However, Word 2013 does have a great numbering feature where we can really easily, as compared to previous versions, define custom numbering styles, which makes our jobs a little bit easier when we're actually creating these agenda documents. That being said, we'll just kind of walk through what some of the standards are, and then we'll actually get into some of these enhanced features with some of the more recent versions of Word. First and foremost, we're going to go ahead and just create some sample data. Traditionally, people use the standard numbering option in Microsoft Word where, the highest level will be a Latin number, 1, 2, 3, etc. I'm going to go ahead and just say section 1, just so we use sample information. Underneath section 1, if we click tab, we might have item 1, or let's go ahead and just say item to keep it generic. Item and item. And then if we inverse tab, shift tab to go back a level, we'll get back to the numbering level, and we'll go ahead and identify section 2, and underneath that we'll type in 3 items. Now, obviously, this is just very simplistic data to get across the point in this video. Your items will obviously have much longer titles. Your sections will be much more robust. Again, just a generic information that we're going to use here just for simplicity's sake. Now, before we dig too deep into the actual numbering best practices, just a quick tip on making Word a little bit more visually friendly. By default, Microsoft Word will automatically just have single line breaks between every item. I always like to select that numbered list that I have here with the sections and the items. And we're going to go ahead and make some modifications through the paragraph tools. Now, all the tools are exposed here. I prefer to actually just click on this guy, which will open our paragraph dialog, and we can make some modifications. By default, there's some specific settings, at least in Microsoft Word 2013. The defaults may be different in previous versions, but you can always work with the indentation that you have. Here we're not indenting the numbering from a standard, but we can always increase the indenting here if we'd like between the number and the actual, or the number or letter and the actual text that follows it. And also we can manipulate line spacing. By default, this don't add space between paragraphs of the same style is checked. I frankly am not the biggest fan of this, specifically in lists for agenda documents, because we may have an item with some text after it. Therefore, we want to actually have the space apply between those items. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that box, and then click the OK button, and you'll see that we kind of spread out and we follow the standard definition of paragraph spacing when we do that. Now, onto the numbering concepts in terms of best practices that were outlined previously in the text version of the guide. This standard format, albeit it's fine, it's just simply not the best in terms of identifying uniqueness to a specific agenda item. So technically, this is item A1, but we see 2 items with the letter A listed. Obviously, that isn't necessarily the best approach. We can have a method to make those unique. Also, I'm not the biggest fan in terms of the order that they have here. The numbers being the Latin numbers being at the top level, and then letters being below. And obviously, the reason for this is as we actually build out and create more items. I'm just putting some dummy text in here. The alphabet is finite. So once we get to Z, we're going to get to double A, double B, double C, etc., etc. And if we keep on going all the way down, we're eventually going to get to triples. Some people, that's perfectly fine because they are unique. Frankly, I'm not the biggest fan. I prefer to have numbers at the item level because our numbers for public meetings of items almost always outnumber the sections. We're always dealing with potentially a large number of items and potentially a smaller number of sections. So how do we go about and adjust this? Well, with pretty much every version of Word through this tool that you have here, if you highlight the standard numbering tool, I mean, you have a number of different options that you can actually select. But again, there's specific limitations to what Word can actually deliver. And the defaults, frankly, aren't the best approach. Now, specifically within the newer versions of Word, it's much more robust, some of this additional multi-level list capability. As you can see, there's some great options that we have here that are a little bit more descriptive in terms of lists and the different levels in the list. At the same time, it doesn't fit exactly what we're looking for from a best practice perspective. The great news is that we have the ability to define a multi-level list or a specific list style that we want to actually carry across documents. In this case, we're going to work with the new multi-level list. In our example in the guide earlier in the text version, we identified that likely we'd probably want to use Roman numerals or something else at the higher level because we want to reserve the Latin numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. for the subsequent item levels. Now here, we're going to go ahead and make that change to the first level. If I click OK, we see that these two numbers are going to change to Roman numerals, as we can see there. Jumping back into that option, we're going to go ahead and jump down to the next level. Again, there's a lot of things we can do here. Typically, let's first stick with level 1. We can manipulate the font. Here, I typically like to have it bold. Some people like it underlined. Whatever you'd like to do, you can definitely achieve it. Some people like different colors for the numbering. Again, it's 100% up to you. Here, if I just go bold with the number, we see that the numbers are bold, but the actual text isn't. And we'll also show an option here for the new the multi-level list. If we wanted to actually do an underline, you have various styles of underlines that you can actually apply. We'll go ahead and click OK. Again, it's just working on the number itself. I'm going to go ahead and undo because I don't want those underlines to stay in my permanent document. Now let's go in and manipulate the next level, new multi-level list. So here we're going to go ahead and select level 2. And note, as we're going through, we can also adjust the indenting. So list level 1, you see here the numbers aligned at 1/4 inch from the left edge, and the text is indented 1/2 inch. If we go to level 2, we see that, in fact, it's 0.75, the number starts, and then at 1 inch from the left indent is where we'll start there. So again, you can manipulate these to fit your needs however you'd like. If you want to keep more room here, for example, potentially you want this aligned at 0.5 and maybe this at 0.75, just to get that effect there, where the beginning of our section text is in line with the beginning of our item numbers, for example. This I find provides the separation we need, but also maximizes the width for our items so that we don't have too many pages in our document. Now let's go ahead and move on and change the numbering style for our items. As mentioned, best practice is to make them unique across the board, and traditionally we don't want to have duplicate letters since there's only 26 letters in the alphabet, and it'll fall to A, A, B, B, etc. as we showed you earlier. We're going to go ahead and select level 2 and select the Latin numeric format here. And then go ahead and click OK, and we'll have our option there. Now again, the Word format is not, the standard is not typically the best. Even if we did go back and change our multi-level list, this to be specifically 1, 2, 3 at the section level, and this to be ABC. There is something that we could do to make it a little bit more specific and unique. Again, section 1 or item 1A, if we want to stick with this format, perfectly fine to do so. I don't think it's necessarily the best practice, but you at least want to go ahead and include level from the previous number. So in this case, we say level 1, it will actually tell us it's a 1A, 1B, 1C, 2A, 2B, 2C, just so we have some degree of uniqueness. But for purposes of this guide, we're going to go ahead and revert back to our Roman numerals at the high level. And at the second level, we're just going to go ahead and switch this back to 1, 2, 3. And we're not going to include any numbering. That looks like Word's giving us a little bit of a problem here. There we go. Simply delete that out. Click OK and we'll get back to our standard here. Now if we jump back into our document, that list format is recognized. So if I go ahead and click Enter, I'm going to hold down Shift and click Tab. Again, you can do the same thing with these little toggle tools here for the different levels. But let's go ahead and create section 3. And a couple of items underneath. And as always, we'll save as we kind of work through our document here. Now we've achieved the formatting that we want to a degree. We have Roman numerals at the section level and we have Latin numbers at the item level. However, the Latin numbers are repeating, and we have mentioned multiple times through this video, the previous video, as well as just the guide in general, that we want to have some degree of uniqueness. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and just select everything, jump back into our tool for defining the multi-level list. And you'll see there's a more or less toggle here. We've been working from the smaller view. If you click on more, it'll show you a lot more information here. So in this case, we want to go ahead and select level 2 here, and note at the bottom or at the right hand side, it gives us a starting number. Well, obviously it will start at 1, but this option, restart list after level 1, we want to go ahead and uncheck that, and we'll click OK. But note we have 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 repeated. When we click OK, it'll automatically be renumbered to continue from the previous number, which is really what we're trying to achieve. Now, if you recall in the guide, we also outlined specific circumstances for special sections. So let's say, for example, section 1 was a closed session. And so we want those item numbers to be different than the rest of the document. We can definitely do that. And one trick way to do that, because technically their items will be at this level, but we don't want a specific, look and feel change here. We want them to be in line, but the numbering is going to be different. Now, if I go in and make modification to the multi-level list at the second level here, and just tell the system, you know what, I want CS in front of these numbers, I could do that. Just type in CS, click OK. However, it applies to all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that action. And if you just sit back and think, how can we achieve what we want to achieve? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If you look in the system here, we can have various levels to the list, but not each level necessarily has to be indented and a sub-level of the next. So in short, we're going to trick Microsoft Word a little bit to output what we want. If we click on level 2, we see that we have a number alignment aligned at 1/2 inch and then 0.75 of an inch. Level 3 is different. But I'm going to go ahead to level 3 and change it to 1/2 inch and 0.75 of an inch. Also, I'm going to change the number style to the standard 1 2 3, but here I'm going to go ahead and add the CS for closed session. Now this is a new level that we're creating, and a key thing to remember here is, it is a separate level, but it is indented the same as some of our other levels here, 0.5 and 0.75. Now we want to make sure that we actually make sure that these two are matching completely, because as we could see, they look a touch different here. And if you jump between the two, number alignment is on the right here, number alignment's on the left here. Well, we want those to look the same, so let's go ahead and make it left. And we see that they're now aligned. So we've defined that style. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Now let's assume that this first section is our closed session and we want this numbering to be different. In this example, we just simply need to click Tab or toggle with these keys here to actually show the difference of the items there. So everything under section 1, we're going to indent one more, and we see that it's starting to actually push out. And the numbers for the next level, which is it's technically level 2, is the previous level, is actually indenting. So you see here, we're able to actually get a very structured format. I'm just putting in some sample text here, where this first section, it's aligned the same as the what's under section 2 from an item perspective, but the numbering follows the standards that we actually wanted to outline. That being section 1 is CS, we have separate CS 1, 2, 3, and then section 2 begins the standard items, and from there in every section afterwards, we go ahead and continue the numbering in that standard format. Now, this might seem like a lot of work to basically create your agenda document and get it in the structure that you want. Obviously, there's solutions out there like AgendaPal that, at the click of a button can create your exact format for you without you having to type it up. However, in many cases, people don't need an end-to-end agenda management system. And frankly, although it seems like a little bit of work to set this up, it really doesn't take too long. And once you have it set up, you don't have to worry about it. You just save this as your template. And you use it for every one of your meetings. So this concludes our second video within the Best Practices Guide to Public Meeting Agenda Formatting. Feel free, if you have any questions, to reach out to us at AgendaPal. We're more than happy to help with any questions you may have on this.